Welcome to the MSJC Internet Authoring Videocast.
In this video, you'll be learning how to complete Review Assignment 10. In Review Assignment 10, Lewis wants us to write another script that shows a table of events at the Lyman Hall Theater over the next 2 weeks from the current date. He's already created the array files for us to use with the script. The event dates array contains a list of dates and times of which theater events are scheduled. The event descriptions array containing the description of these events, and the event prices array containing the admission prices of the events as well. So Lewis has already written the page content and provided the style sheets for us. Our job is to write a script that selects the events that occur in the 2-week window from the current date and then display them in the web page. So if we take a look here at the example, this is what we're going to build, is this table under this heading upcoming events here. You can see we have 3 columns: the date column, the event column, and the price column. In step 1, we need to open up our LHT events_txt.html file and the LHT_table_txt.js file. We'll add our name and date in both and then save them without the _txt. So here is the JavaScript file, and here's the HTML file. And then we'll go ahead and save this as. And then we'll move over to the JavaScript file, add our author and date information there, and then also save that as. In step 2, we're asked to go to the LHT events HTML file, and directly above the closing head tag, we want to insert a script element that will link to the LHT_list.js file. That's the one that contains the arrays, and then the LHT_table.js file, the one we'll be working in. And we want to defer the loading of both of those script files until after the page is loaded. So here we are back in the HTML file. We want to go ahead and add our link in here to the 2 script files. So we're going to add 2 script elements, and we'll add them right before the closing head tag. The first script points to the array and it's being deferred, and then the second script element has a source pointing to the table.js file, and it's also being deferred. In step 3, we'll scroll down the document, and directly after the closing article tag, insert a div element with the ID of event list. And it's within this element that we'll write the HTML code for the table of the upcoming theater events. And then we can close the HTML file and save our changes as well. So here we are back in the HTML file. We're just going to go down here below this closing article. And that's where we add the div with our ID of event list. Now while we're at it, let's also take a look at this list.js file and see the 3 arrays that we have here. So you can see we have one array that's been named event dates, and so that has all of the dates and times. And then event description has all the descriptions, and then an array that's called event prices, which has the prices. So we're just essentially going to parse through these 3 arrays as we create the rows in the table that will be generated into the HTML file here. In step 4 now, we're going into the LHT_table JavaScript file. And below the comments section, we'll declare a variable named this day, and it will contain the date of August 30th, 2018. And we'll be using that date just to test the script. So switching over to the table.js file, going below the comment, and then adding a new comment here that reads set the date displayed in the calendar, and then establishing a new var, camel cased as this day, and then assigning it a new date object and passing to that date object the actual date of August 30th, 2018. In step 5, we're going to create a variable named table.html, and that's going to contain then all of the HTML code that will make up our events table. So the first thing that we'll add to it will be the text that's listed here. You can see it'll be an opening table element that'll be ID'd as event table. We'll add a caption element that has the text upcoming events, and then we'll create a table row that has a header element of date, event, and prices. So 3 different THs for date, event, and price. So just going below the code that we wrote previously here in our JavaScript file, adding a new comment, write the HTML code for the event list table. So we're creating a new variable, assigning to that variable then, you can see these are all going to be text strings, and then also we're going to use the plus equals operator to basically concatenate each of these 3 lines of code here into that table HTML variable. So we start by assigning it the opening table element, ID'd, and now because we're working inside of a pair of quotes, double quotes, we're going to use the single quotes to identify the name of the ID value. And then we use a plus equals to add more string text. This is the caption element that has the text upcoming events inside of it. And then plus equals again to add to that variable the table row with the 3 TH elements. In step 6, it says that Lewis only wants the page to list events occurring within 14 days after the current date. So we'll declare a variable that will be named endDate, and that will contain a date object that is 14 days after the date that we stored in the thisDay variable. And then in the hint there, they give us the math that we'll be able to use to do that. We'll use the getTime function, and we'll use the multiplication of 14 times 24 times 60 times 60 times 1,000. That's how we get the number of milliseconds for 14 days. So we'll just add that after the last line that we added. We'll add a comment there, set the end date for the event list 2 weeks from the current date. And then we create a new var, it's called endDate, and then we'll generate an instance of another date object. And this time we're passing to it the date that we created up above, so the thisDay date of August 30th, 2018. And then by using the getTime function, we're adding to it the milliseconds for 14 days. In step 7 now, we're going to use a for loop that'll loop through the length of the event dates array, and we'll use I as the counter variable in that for loop. So we're basically going to be parsing through the arrays. So again, adding a comment underneath the previous code there, loop through the event dates array, generate a for loop using the var I, setting its value to 0 initially, and then we'll run this loop as long as I is less than our event dates dot length, so the actual number of elements within that array, we want to be less than that value, and then incrementing I each time we go through the loop. So you can see that we're just simply creating a var for event date and then assigning to it a new date object, and that date object will be getting the value from the event dates array based on the current value of I. So the first time through the loop, I is 0, so it'll get the 0 element of the event dates array. And then each time that we go through the loop, I is going to increment by 1, so that allows us to go through element by element in the array and grab each one of those values in the event dates array. So after we've grabbed the date based on the current value of I, we generate a variable called event day and assign to it the event date that we just previously created using the toDate string function. So that'll actually assign the date then into event day as a string. And then for event time, we take the event date and apply to it the toLocale time string function. So that gives us, depending on the locale of the computer that's viewing our page, it'll format it in the right format for that geographical region. So we've actually completed steps 8A, B, and C here. We created the event date variable, the event day variable, and the event time variable according to the specifications there in A, B, and C. So we're up to 8D now. We're going to add an if statement that has a conditional expression that'll test to see whether or not this day is less than or equal to our event date, and then also check to see if the event date is less than or equal to the end date. So if either of those two expressions are true, this day is less than or equal to the event date, and the event date is less than or equal to the end date. If both of those are true, then the event falls within the 2-week window that Lewis has requested, and the script should add the following HTML code text to the value then of our HTML table. Remember, we called that variable table HTML. So here you can see we're adding a new row, and then in the row we're going to have 3 table cells. First we'll have the event day and the event times with an at concatenated in between those two variables, then the description, and then the price. So first we add a comment here. If the event date is within the 2-week window, display it on the page. So there's the two expressions, this day less than or equal to event date, and event date is less than or equal to end date. So both of those expressions have to evaluate to true for us to actually add then the text that we see here in the next few lines. So then we take our table HTML variable, just use the plus equals operator to keep adding HTML text to it as string. So we first add the opening table row element. Then in the next line we add a cell that concatenates the event day with an @ symbol, and then concatenates the event time, and then the closing TD tag there. Then on the next line, again, we're using the plus equals just to continue adding the string text into building this table. So now we've got the second table cell, and we're concatenating within the open and closing tags here the event descriptions, whatever the current one is in the array that we're pulling it from. And then on the next line, one more cell, concatenating to that the event prices, again the current one, based on the value of I as we're going through this for loop. And then we end the row with a close TR tag. Then in step 9, the last thing we need to do is to end the for loop and close up the table with a closing table tag. So we go ahead and put in our closing curly brace there for the for loop, and then underneath of that we just concatenate or using the plus equal operator there, just add another string value, which is the closing table tag that completes the table. So within this block of code, the for loop and then the if statement here, it's just going to keep running through this for loop as long as the expressions here both evaluated to true. It just keeps building the table, and then once we reach the length value of the number of elements within the array, event dates, then we'll escape out of the for loop, we'll close up the table, and then all we'll need to do is just actually add that back into the HTML document. So in step 10, you can see it asks us to insert the value then of the table HTML variable into the inner HTML property of our page element that has the ID of event list. So remember, that's the div that we created in the HTML document. We ID'd it as event list, so we're just going to target its inner HTML property and assign the table HTML, the contents of the table HTML variable to it. So we'll write a comment that reads, write the HTML code into the event list box, and then we use the document.getElementById, and then event list as the value that we're passing to it, and then dot inner HTML. So that gets the div that's ID'd as event list, targets its inner HTML property, and then we're just assigning the contents to the inner HTML of the table HTML variable, which is the table that we just built here in our JavaScript code. So step 11 is just reminding us to document our code. We've done that as we went through each of the steps. So we'll jump to 12, which says save the changes to the file. Go ahead and load our LHT events HTML file in our browser and verify that the page shows the theater events over the 2-week period starting with Friday, August 31st, 2018 and concluding with Wednesday, September 12th, 2018. So just right-click on our LHT events.html file, view it in the browser, and there you can see all the dates starting from Friday, August 31st, 2018, all the way down to Wednesday, September 12th, 2018. So there should be 11 events that you see in your table there. Each one has a date, each one has the event description, and each one having the price listing. So that's it for review assignment 10. Until next time, happy coding. If you liked this video, please click the like button and leave us a comment down below. I also would appreciate it if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also click the notification bell so that you'll be notified when new videos are posted.